privileged to introduce John Peters. John, come on in with us. John is a program coordinator here at the center. John, tell us, how long have you been here at the center?
I started here in October of 1991, John.
Okay, and what is your role?
Well, I evolved into a conference planner to assist with all the logistical issues of the national and regional conferences.
All right, John, one of the things that you have been here for quite a while, so I wonder if you can tell me a little bit of how you have seen things change over the landscape in education and in dropout prevention, or particularly in the work of the conferences that you're very involved with.
Well, I think one of the things that I've noticed, John, over the years is we've become a lot more technically oriented. We've gotten away from the pencils for keeping track of registrations onto online registrations. We have become a lot more AV oriented at our conferences for our presentations, and we seem to have a much broader audience, and we're looking at a lot of different issues than we were 25 years ago.
Okay, and John, tell us if you can, you think back over the years that you have been here, and tell us if you would, maybe one of your favorite memories of the time that you have been here.
Well, there's so many memories, it's just hard to really place one, but I think the time that we went to Austin, Texas in a beautiful hotel, sort of an embassy suites type of hotel. It was probably one of the nicest hotels we've ever worked in, and it was just it was right at Christmas time. The hotel was decorated really beautiful, and it was just sort of a nice setting to do that. And Texas is a big state with a lot of people interested in dropout prevention.
All right, John, you are you are a natural in the idea of networking and building on relationships to accomplish things. Tell us, how do you see those kind of skills making a difference when it comes to dropout prevention and keeping young people in school?
Well, I think networking is really important, and what we have found here that it's very important to network with local and regional people at a state that we're going to get them on board to help support our conferences. And obviously networking from an individual school standpoint is letting teachers and counselors get to know the kids and be able to know the kids that are challenged and be able to give them special care.
All right, John, it's a privilege to have you with us. Glad that you're here. This is, again, a fun time. And I'm going to ask another lady to come in, one of my favorites. These two have so many memories together. John, if you want to stay right here. And Linda Shirley. Linda Shirley also worked with the conference efforts here at the conference for years and years. I am privileged to know Linda. I actually was privileged to take her place when she retired about 5 years ago. So Linda, tell us a little bit about your memories of doing these conferences and events with the National Dropout Prevention Center.
Well, I'm so proud to have been a part of this. I have so many fond memories. When I was first hired, I was hired on a grant, and it was very tenuous about how long I would be here. But the first grant established the South Carolina Dropout Prevention Network Board, and Mrs. Tunky Riley was our chair of that board, and they helped shape and give a vision and a direction for what we needed to do in South Carolina. So I was on the ground floor of being in South Carolina and establishing some dropout prevention efforts in our state, because we wanted to certainly have a good record in our state if we were going to go national. And then my job developed into helping John plan national conferences and seminars and forums, all kinds of events for staff development improvement, and to help educators on the front line to know what the latest research said about how to work with at-risk youth and how to develop skills that would encourage them to develop interests that would keep them in school. And so it's been a real privilege. I've been all over this country meeting fine educators from everywhere, understanding their needs and then trying to help them with strategies and policies and actions that they can take in the classroom and in the school and community. What I heard you ask John his favorite memory. I'll tell you one of my favorite memories. We had a national conference in Kansas City, and the Hallmark Card Corporation was very much interested in promoting our efforts to keep young people in school. And I had the unique experience of working with Hallmark cards in developing encouragement cards. You know, Hallmark does such a wide range of celebrations, but this was the first time they did a card. They actually did 3 to encourage young people to stay in school until graduation. And Hallmark gave every participant there 3 cards to take back with them and then to use. And you can go in a Hallmark store now, perhaps, and find that card.
That's great. We hear, tremendous things where partners of ours will come together and do those special touches to help make those events special. John and Linda, it's good to have you with us. We also have some folks that have been instrumental in the work of education and the support of the center that are not able to be here with us, and we're going to hear one of those right now. We're going to hear from the State Superintendent, Molly Spearman of the state of South Carolina.
Hello, I'm Molly Spearman, State Superintendent of Education in South Carolina. This year, the National Dropout Prevention Center celebrates their 30th year of dedication to dropout prevention, recovery, and reentry. As a South Carolinian, I'm proud that the center calls South Carolina home. I'm also excited about the great strides our nation has made in addressing our national dropout rates. Every child deserves the hope for a brighter future that a high school diploma can provide. Until that becomes a reality, we all have much work left to do. The center was organized in 1986, and today the organization is the world's premier source for dropout prevention research, best practices, and information. We in South Carolina look forward to the National Dropout Prevention Center's contributions to dropout prevention for the next 30 years and far beyond. The Department of Education and all South Carolinians offer our congratulations for 30 successful years to the National Dropout Prevention Center.
It's my privilege to introduce some longtime friends of the center, Dr. Judith Pauley and Mr. Joe Pauley, Crystal Star Award winners, I believe, in 2008. Is that right? And present constantly at the programs. And we're glad to have them with us. And so I want to just ask you, if you would, to let us know some of your thoughts regarding, you have been on the scene with the center for a number of years. And you have also been working with young people and been working with educators for a long time. Tell us, how have you seen things change over the past, we're celebrating our 30th anniversary, so let's say that the past 30 years, how have you seen things change with young people or with educators over the last several years?
Well, we're delighted to see that the number for graduation rates have gone up as high as they have. I mean, that just gives me goosebumps as I think about that. And to keep going and to help more and more kids graduate. So all that hard work from everybody.
Okay.
And I've been particularly impressed by the work you've started doing on native reservations. And we've seen a big improvement on the reservations that we've been associated with in the past 4 or 5 years, where they were, one particular one, they had one person graduate from high school, and now they've got more than a dozen on this particular reservation, and they're all looking forward to staying in school and going on to a better life.
Okay, very good. And let me ask you, why do you work with the center? Why do you go to our events? Why do you, particularly, you have a lot of different opportunities, yet you choose to come to our events consistently, and so much so that we now consider you family. So tell us, why NDPC? Why the National Dropout Prevention Center?
Oh, I think you're the premier organization to reach many school systems, many students, and help kids along the way. I taught chemistry and physics for 42 years, so education's in my blood. And about 17 years ago, I started teaching what we teach to help teachers reach every kid. So You guys have been great.
Okay, Joe?
We consider you part of our family also, which is probably as big a reason as any why we keep presenting at all your conferences. You're doing work that we've not seen anybody else doing, and we want to be part of that.
Okay. And one last question that I would have for the two of you, and I would like for you to just look in the camera and address those folks who are watching this online or maybe later recorded, but just tell them what makes a difference in reaching young people to keep them in schools and on track. Just one at a time. If you look in, just give a short response to the camera and tell those that are watching what makes a difference in reaching young people.
I think speaking their language, helping them get their motivational needs met, which are individual, and individualized instruction in the classroom.
Okay.
When we teach in universities, we ask the teachers, when you kick a kid out of your classroom one day, do you feel that you have let that student down, failed that student, and failed to do your job toward that student that day? And as a result, at the beginning of the course, they all say no. By the time we finish, they're all going, yeah, yes, and they're now looking at negative behaviors of the students as a call for help and not as a power structure, which is the biggest change that we've seen. And as a result, the kids are responding.
Okay, very good. Joe and Judy, we really appreciate you coming. I know you've had a long trip to come. As you're making your way out, we have another recorded message from one of our friends that's not able to be here, Dr. Joy Hoffmeister from the state of Oklahoma.
Hello, I'm Joy Hoffmeister, State Superintendent of Public Instruction for the state of Oklahoma. Congratulations to the National Dropout Prevention Center for 30 years of increasing graduation rates among our school children. Thank you for your tireless work to lift student outcomes through mentoring, family engagement, early childhood education, and more. Here in Oklahoma, we focus on the whole student by providing counseling, teaching life skills, and emphasizing the transition to college or career through our alternative education initiatives. We're also proud of Oklahoma's Owasso Ram Academy, the only school in the nation to receive the 2015 Crystal Star Award given by the National Dropout Prevention Center. We will remain a strong advocate for at-risk students. Again, congratulations.
Okay, we're glad to be back here again on a gorgeous day here in Clemson, and we've got Dr. Dick Hamby here. Dick was really the founding director or the interim director that was placed here when the center was started. Dick, tell us a little bit about your experience when the center first opened. You were put in this position, maybe what your expectations were. What were some of the first things you felt like needed to take place?
Well, the first thing we had to do was try to find some money, because we were promised $20 million, and we didn't know if we were going to get that $20 million or not. So that was one of the first things we had to do. But when we first started, the center had three employees, me, a part-time secretary, and a graduate assistant. Our database that we were supposed to develop was an accordion folder full of articles, papers, and so forth, and a little stack of 3x5 note cards that had people's names on them. And that was our database at that time.
That was the beginning. So where did you go from there? What was the mission? What were you tasked with, and how did you go about that?
Well, our mission was to set up a clearinghouse to have an 800 line for people to call in to develop publications and so forth. And we had to hire some employees, and we got that done. It took a while. It took several years to get it done, because you have to remember, we did not have an internet at that time. We didn't have smartphones at that time.
Right.
So that was what was happening.
That was a different age, and I notice you've got a piece with you that you is that the first?
When we started the center, when we made the announcement in October of 1986, this was our only publication at that time, telling what we were going to do. And I did not want them to give this out at that time because we didn't have anything to do at that time. We didn't have anything to give people at that time. But it told what our mission was, told what we were going to do, and from there, you see what has happened. It's amazing. It's the growth of this center is just unbelievable. 30 years. It's just from where we started to 30
Yes.
years is just amazing.
It is. It's incredible, and it was started with the good and the strong work at the foundation of the organization by individuals like you. So, Dr. Hamby, we thank you for being here today and for being with us. We're going to go now to another recorded message from Dr. Kirsten Baszler from North Dakota.
Hello, I'm Kirsten Baszler, the Superintendent of Public Instruction from the great state of North Dakota. I want to wish a happy 30th anniversary to the National Dropout Prevention Center. I have the honor of serving on the center's board of directors, and therefore I am fortunate to have a first-hand look at the center's valuable work. In today's world, it is especially important for our students to get a high school diploma that prepares them for the choices they will make in life. They may want to start a business, they may want to go to college, they may want to join the military and serve our country. The National Dropout Prevention Center helps to set our students on the right path. I am proud to be part of it. From the great state of North Dakota, happy anniversary.
Okay, we're back again, and the next person that we have to talk to is a familiar face with the audience for the National Dropout Prevention Center. She hosts our Solutions to the Dropout Crisis webcast. She was on staff here at the center for a number of years and very active. And so I'm real happy to have Marty Duckenfield with us. Marty, it's good to see you today. Gorgeous day here. Can you believe we're celebrating 30 years?
It's hard to believe, but would you believe, John, I was here for 25 years. And what's exciting for me is the thinking about what happened in days gone by. And it's a long time ago. You talk about the Solutions broadcast on the web. Well, when I started, there was no web. We did have internet, but it was only between colleges. And I had the job of learning all the model programs there were and collecting them and putting them in a database. Now, frankly, I did not know what a database was, but our director, Jay Smink, soon enlightened me. And I've got to say, it was one of the greatest good fortune of my life to be able to start in 1988 at the beginning of this place, because it was a great ride, and it continues to be with Solutions.
It does. And tell me, some of the changes that you have seen. When you first came, you talked about having the internet, but the world was not as technologically oriented as it is now. How have you seen things change, and the way we reach people, the way we reach educators, the way educators reach young people? How has some of that changed in your thoughts?
Oh, it's huge. I laugh because when we started, we would get phone calls because of a Parade magazine article. And they had our 800 number, our toll-free number, and people were calling one thing after the other, wanting information, desperate for information. There was nowhere else to turn. And so we all didn't know much more than they did, or probably less. So we said, we'll get back to you. And so we went into the cardboard box that Dr. Hamby had assembled of the various articles, and in the statistics books from the education department, and we got their answers, and we photocopied them and mailed them back to them. So I can remember seeing the floor of the center piled with all these envelopes because that phone was ringing like crazy in those early years. So we progressed by building a library, building resources, files and folders, building the model programs, and doing these publications. So and then getting into the World Wide Web. That was huge in the 90s. So there was a lot of things, but I think most of our work was done face-to-face. We have the conferences, we did workshops, we were out there with the teachers and the educators, and it was such a great learning experience because you learn from the people in the field, and they have so much to give.
And you know, now what started from that cardboard file box has expanded to the model programs database, which is now online on our website. Our website is the world's most accessed resource regarding dropout prevention. We're active not only in just face-to-face, but virtual opportunities like this. Of course, as you know, the Solutions webcast and those get archived so that the ripple effects of those programs, those efforts, we just see them constantly.
I mean, to me, I think what we did, and Jay and Dick were both so ahead of their time, because dropout was not a big issue in 1988. Hardly anybody knew what it was. When I came, I just thought it talked about 16-year-olds, and I learned so much more. But by the time the world was paying attention, and a lot of us through their hard work, we had resources there to give people to help them. And it was those 5, 6, 7 years in the early days where we laid the basis for what has become this incredible center. But it was a lot of work to be done back then. They started with, people don't realize how little they started with a charge to do this. And then they just took off. It was a great experience to work on that.
Now, Marty, I have been here at the center for about 5 years, and probably the biggest thing that I recognize is just the number of incredible people across our country that are working with young people, trying to give them a brighter future, trying to instill hope, keep them involved in school. And those relationships, for me, is a very special part of the job. Yeah. I know that's the case with you because everywhere I go, people are asking me to tell Marty I said hello. Tell us a little bit about some of the relationships that you've had and what they mean to you from your years here at the center.
They absolutely mean the world to me. You discover new worlds when you get involved in dropout prevention, and the new world that I discovered back in 89, 90 was a world of service learning. And that is like a third family for me, because certainly I have my family and then this family here. But all across the country and across the world, people who are interested in combining service and education, and that's been a huge part of my life since I came here. And all those wonderful people. But I have to tell you, the people who come to the National Dropout Prevention Conferences are the cream, the salt of the earth. I don't know how to say it. They are the people with the biggest hearts, and they really care about kids. And so, I mean, the Pauleys are here, for example. You get big hugs. And, you know, all those people out there who I know through, it's not just service learning, it was through dropout prevention, are people who champion those young people that you're talking about, as we all do. And they inspire each other. And they've always inspired me to keep on going, All right.
Very good. Marty, well, we're glad to have you here. We're going to hear now from another person who has sent their greetings by video, Dr. Denise Juneau from Montana.
Hi, I'm Montana Superintendent of Public Instruction, Denise Juneau. Congratulations on 30 years of groundbreaking work to make sure our students stay in school and graduate with a plan. I created Graduation Matters Montana, and I'm proud to say that for 2 straight years we have broken graduation rate records. More Montana students are staying in school and earning their diplomas than ever before, creating a multi-million-dollar boost to our state's economy. Keep up the good and important work.
And we're back here on a beautiful afternoon here at Clemson, again celebrating the 30th anniversary of the National Dropout Prevention Center. And I'm privileged to have with me the executive director when I joined the center, and really one of the stalwarts of the center and its history, Dr. Jay Smink.
Well, it's wonderful to be here. And such a beautiful day in 30 years, hard to believe.
It is hard to believe, and you played a major part of that. Tell us, how long were you the executive director? Where did things start? And from the time when you retired, what kind of progress and changes did you see? That's going to be a challenge to get in a few minutes, but if you can, give us some of the highlights.
Well, very briefly, I joined the staff officially in May of 1988, and I left officially in 2011. And in between that, I was very active as the executive director, and we took the center from 3 or 4 people. At one time, I think we had about 25 different people, which is why we needed this building here as well as the building over there. And what we did was try and put our finger on the hot spots of the issue, which was dropout prevention. And when we started, I remember back that most of the people were interested in statistics. Then I could see a shift toward
let's show us some successful programs and projects. And we went with that. We also tried to lead some of that movement. Yes, statistics are important, but successful projects and successful programs are best. And then that led us to probably the most significant stamp we've put on the dropout prevention industry, and that was the 15 most effective strategies. And we built those to a recognized set of standards that school districts, even state agencies, as well as federal agencies, should be taking a look at and see how they mesh together.
Right. You know, Jay, in the work that we have done, we have looked, and the work of the center and those 15 strategies are either in state legislation or in state board policies in at least 33 states that we know of. And it is something that we are constantly being asked about and people want more information about. So it is a fundamental building block for schools that are trying to make an effort in raising graduation rates. Just one last question before we have our next guest come in, and that would be looking in the future. You see where we've been in 30 years. Looking in the future, where do you see the efforts in dropout prevention going? Is there a shift? How would you see those efforts changing?
Well, either fortunately or unfortunately, the issue is going to remain with us. Because the youngsters that drop out of school, their errant ways really start at birth, sometimes even before birth. And so the issue is going to be with us for a long time. Fortunately, the center has a handle on what works. So we do know what works, and the center has enough programs in place to be able to help not only communities, but school districts and state agencies in that. So I see the center remaining in business for at least another 30 years, because a birth of a child in 20 years, they're going to drop out, maybe a third of them or a fourth of them. So it's hopeful that we know what to do, but it's also it's exciting to know that the center does know what to do, and it can provide that professional help.
All right, Jay, thank you for being with us. We have one more recorded greeting, and that is from Dr. Tom Torlakson from the state of California.
Hi, I'm Tom Torlakson, State Superintendent of Public Instruction for California. Congratulations to the National Dropout Prevention Center on your 30th anniversary. Your contributions to keeping students in school have led to solid increases in graduation rates. Having been a teacher and a coach, I know that no educator wants to see a student drop out and not realize their full potential. The National Dropout Prevention Center provides effective help for at-risk youth. Thanks for your work, fostering hope and success in their lives.
All right, we are here again on a gorgeous afternoon, and it's my privilege to have the Dean of the College of Education at Clemson University, Dr. George Petersen, with us. He is the Dean of the College of Education, as I mentioned, which houses the National Dropout Prevention Center. It's good to have you with us. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the mission of the College of Education here at Clemson University, and maybe how the National Dropout Prevention Center fits in with that mission.
Well, John, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today. I think the mission of the College of Education is clearly oriented towards serving underserved population and marginalized populations, creating educational excellence in those school systems, doing the research and the teaching necessary to do that. When I think about the National Dropout Center and its mission to make sure that students graduate from high school and then live productive lives, it's very much aligned with not only the mission of the College of Education and our faculty, but also within the larger land-grant mission of Clemson University, which looks at the economic and educational development of all citizens of South Carolina. So it's a pretty straight trajectory from National Dropout to college and, of course, Clemson University.
Okay, when you look at the scope of the National Dropout Prevention Center, being nationwide and the impact that is made and just the amount of outreach that is there, what does that mean for the university from a national sense, but then also looking toward the future in building the College of Education? How do you see that direction taking place and the impact of that from the National Dropout Prevention Center?
Well, I think first of all, the National Dropout Center in its origins is designed to serve not only citizens of South Carolina, but the nation as a whole. I think when I think about faculty in the College of Education and their research is not regional, their research is national, and for many of them, international. So when I think about how the composite of the National Dropout Centers work, but also the research it does, the partnerships that it forms, it again parallels the work and scholarship and teaching of our faculty. And I think the idea of the National Dropout Centers to have such a large national footprint is critical, not only in recognition of the name and the work, but also the impact it actually has on the lives of students, and many times very marginalized students, and their successes going forward. So I see it as a synergistic approach, and thinking about how the research and the work influences the success of families, not only in South Carolina, but in the nation as a whole.
Okay. Dr. Petersen, is glad to have you with us this afternoon. As a member of staff for the National Dropout Prevention Center, you know our appreciation for your support and the part that you play in our work. We thank you for all of your help.
Great.
So
Good
thank
talking
you.
with you today.
Good talking to you. And as I mentioned, we are here at, it is a gorgeous afternoon, and we are privileged to be here to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the National Dropout Prevention Center, part of the College of Education at Clemson University. And as we are ready to get things started now, it is, the group is getting together, and it is my privilege at this point to introduce to you the Executive Director of the National Dropout Prevention Center, Dr. Sandy Addis.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. For those of you that are watching us live streaming on the web, I'd like to call your attention to our location. We are here at 209 Martin Street in Clemson, South Carolina, on the campus of Clemson University. We are at the National Dropout Prevention Center. I believe our camera crew has shown you a view of where we are. And we welcome you. We have folks here with us, physically present, but we also, as I mentioned, are live streaming this event on our website. We don't know how many people are watching that. We know a good many are. We know that many of our board of directors who are all over the country are. We know that a lot of educators are. And we want to welcome you, both those of you that are physically present here and that are live stream viewing. And we appreciate you being here. This is the 30th anniversary of the National Dropout Prevention Center. And it's a great event. I wanted to just have something that would acknowledge the work that's gone into this, the history, the time, the dedication, the effort of so many people, some of whom are with us today and some you will hear from. We have current staff members here. We have former staff members here. We have family members of both current and former staff members here. We have College of Education personnel, folks that have worked with us and supported us through the College of Education here at Clemson University. We have one of our board members, Mr. Ted Riley, with us, and then also you'll meet Dean George Petersen, who is a member of our board, but we also have a number of our board members that are viewing us live stream, and board members, thank you for doing that. We have offered media packets on this event, and we know that we'll get some media coverage. We've had some calls and some interest, so we do appreciate that. I want to just make a few remarks. It's been my pleasure for a little over a year and a half to serve as the director of the National Dropout Prevention Center. And it's something that when in the early 1980s, in 1986, 7, and 8, when I, as a young educator, started utilizing the resources of this place, it would have never occurred to me that I might have this privilege and opportunity to be here helping to be a part of it today. So I am elated to get to share this with you. It's a remarkable thing that an organization that was begun in 1986 with soft money and has lived largely on that for its life exists today. And if you think about it, so many organizations start and fizzle out of business. And yet the National Dropout Prevention Center and Network is here, alive and working well today. There's a lot of people that can and should take credit for that. Certainly past staff members. There's probably been 75 or 80 people that have worked here over the years, maybe 100. In different capacities, either as employees, contractors, service providers of different types. And those people, their work, some of you are here today, your work has made it possible for this organization to continue to function. We've got a current staff that I can't say enough about. They have worked hard. They continue to work hard. They're great people. They're dedicated, and they serve people across this country. And they help this organization to maintain and continue to. We have a board of directors of 25 people across the country made up of practitioners, professionals, political figures, several state chief school officers who work with us to guide us, and it's partly due to that board that we are still in existence today. We have donors and contributors. We have sponsors. We have partners who help to finance the work of the National Dropout Prevention Center and Network. And they're in part responsible for this 30-year run that we have so much enjoyed. Several things around you today I'll call your attention to, and you'll see as we go through our program. We've planted, in honor of the 30th anniversary, we've planted an oak tree here on the entrance to our facility. And that oak tree is to symbolize the longevity and the permanence and the stability of this organization. So I want you to take note of that. The month of October, for the first time this year and hereafter, is designated as National Dropout Prevention Month. And so you will begin to hear more about that. We have put on our website resources whereby educators and practitioners and media folks can call local attention to this issue. We feel that it's important, particularly in the month of October when this organization was founded, and right after school starts back, that people across this country call attention to this issue. And so we've established the National Dropout Prevention Month, and we will continue to reinforce that. So that's some of the things that we are doing. Also, I mentioned our board. We have, as you know, a board chair, Mr. Bob Collins, who's out in Phoenix, Arizona today viewing us. Bob, I know you're out there watching us live streaming. And Bob couldn't be here, but Bob asked me to read a letter to you from him as the chair of the National Dropout Prevention Center and Network Board of Directors. So I'm going to read this letter to you. Colleagues and friends, I would like to congratulate the National Dropout Prevention Center and Network on its 30th anniversary. This, however, is also an anniversary of 30 years of service to the children of our nation as they have faced adversity and their life challenges that threaten their high school graduation. At times, we think of high school dropout as another data point, a statistic often reported in percentages. The National Dropout Prevention Center and Network has always seen every student as a person, an individual story of meaning in life and educational challenges. The National Dropout Prevention Center and Network has always been the voice for each individual student as they try to realize their dreams for themselves. The National Dropout Prevention Center and Network also has not only been an ally, but a constant advocate for the many students who often had no one else. At the same time, the National Dropout Prevention Center and Network has been a resource for educators and parents as they have worked to meet the needs of their students and children. It continues to be the largest organization in the nation that addresses the prevention of student dropouts. Its publications, conferences, research, and communications can be found in school as in homes throughout the country. I'd like to highlight Dr. J. Smink for his vision and leadership in guiding the National Dropout Prevention Center and Network through its formative years. I would also like to highlight the efforts of the current staff of the National Dropout Prevention Center. Congratulations are specifically going to the men and women of the National Dropout Prevention Center and Clemson University who have dedicated so much time and energy to this work. It is ongoing commitment of staff and board members over the years that has and will continue in the decades to come to affect the lives of countless young people as they graduate high school and continue in their communities. Regard, Bob Collins, Chair, Board of Directors. Bob, thank you for that. We appreciate you. Bob Collins is a phenomenal board chair, and I can't say enough about his leadership to help support this organization. We aren't just in the business here at the National Dropout Prevention Center of surviving for 30 years. We're in the business of helping people who prevent dropouts do their work. That's what we exist to do, and we are excited about that. We are alive and well. We are the nation's oldest and longest standing organization that does this kind of work. We also are the world's literally most utilized dropout prevention resource. When you Google the phrase dropout prevention, there's usually on a given day about 2.5 million possible resources on the World Wide Web. And the two that pop up at the top are number one, the National Dropout Prevention Center website, and number two, the 15 Effective Strategies research, which is part of our website. So we literally are the world's most utilized resource for dropout prevention. We are doing as much work as we possibly can to serve the people that do this work, actually with children and with educators. Last week, in 1 week, we had teams in Ohio and we had teams doing work in Mississippi, both with school districts. In the next 4 weeks, we will have teams in New York City. We will have people in Kentucky. We will have people in 2 locations on different sites in West Virginia, just in 1 month. Again, working with people that do this work, supporting schools and districts and state departments of education to do this work. So we're very pleased with where we are, but we also want to continue. We want to continue to grow. We want to continue to influence the education world. 83% is not the best graduation rate we can do in this country. We can do much, much better, and we can save a lot more children by helping those people that do that. So I want to let you know where we are, but we've got a really exciting program for you today. We've been looking forward to it. I want to thank my staff, particularly led by Lynn Dunlap, for organizing this program as we go forward. Clemson University has been a great home and a great supporter of the National Dropout Prevention Center and Network. It came here in 1986, and Clemson has gone far above and beyond to help and support us. We've got 2 wonderful buildings that have just recently been totally renovated by Clemson University to house us. Clemson Broadcast Productions supports us, and certainly the College of Education supports us. We're part of the College of Education here at Clemson University. And it's been my privilege to work with and for the founding dean of the College of Education, Dean George Petersen. Dean Petersen has been absolutely one of the most phenomenal, supportive administrators of this university that we could ask for. He has attended our conferences. He is an ex officio member of our board of directors. He monitors and advises and guides what we do. Dean Petersen, I want to introduce you for some comments and to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you, Sandy. I appreciate that very thoughtful welcome. I'm George Petersen. I am, as Sandy said, I'm the founding dean of the College of Education here at Clemson. You know, Sandy said something a little while back about being a teacher and using the materials from the National Dropout Center in his work as a teacher. Many of you know this, but some of you may not. My mom was a migrant farm worker, and she was divorced with 3 children without even a high school diploma. Eventually she went back and got a high school diploma and became an elementary school teacher, actually a kindergarten teacher. But she had 2 brothers, and both the brothers went to school, but they dropped out of high school. And while as a young man, it didn't make a lot of sense to me at that time. As I grew older, I realized the devastation in lives of people who do not have those educational opportunities. So the idea that I am the founding dean of the College of Education that houses the National Dropout Center has a little bit of irony for me, but it also has a significant amount of compassion, because I realize firsthand the importance of this work. I have experienced it as a family member and as an educator. So Sandy's given me a short timeline, because once in a while he's given me an open mic and no timeline, and he's learned his lesson. So he says, Dean Petersen, you're only supposed to talk 3 minutes. So let me just say that I'm honored to be here today. It is the vision of the former director, Dr. J. Smink, and the significant work and leadership of the current director, Dr. Sandy Addis, along with his dedicated and professional staff and the research fellows and the board of directors that has made the National Dropout Center what it is today. It has made it a major resource to schools and to students of South Carolina and the nation. The alignment of the mission of the National Dropout Center and its network to improve the lives of all young people so that they graduate from school and that they lead productive lives is in line with the mission of the College of Education and significantly in line with the mission of the land-grant University of Clemson in the idea that you look at the economic and educational benefits for the members of the state. It is the success and the thinking outside the box that has made the National Dropout Center successful. The meta-analysis recently published about dropout prevention outcomes, the certification of dropout prevention specialists and professionals, events like the upcoming 2017 At-Risk Youth Conference in Myrtle Beach, featuring our own football coach, Dabo Sweeney, is out of the box. The idea that they think systemically about the problem and not just look at the person as an individual, but understand that it is a measure of the organization, speaks volumes of the care and intellectual capacity and professionalism of National Dropout Center director and staff. I am honored to be a small part of today's celebration, to engage with an organization that focuses on the educational and economic success of all students, but especially those who are at risk. Those students who were very much like members of my own family. Congratulations, Dr. Addis and the National Dropout Center staff for 30 years of excellent work. I imagine we're going to be another 30. I'll be coming up here and probably with a cane though, right? So it's wonderful, congratulations. And now it is my honor and my privilege to introduce not only a well-respected statesman, former governor, and former U.S. Senator, U.S. Secretary of Education, but also a dear friend to the National Dropout Center. Please welcome Mr. Richard Dick Riley.
Thank you so much, Dr. Petersen and Sandy. I appreciate your remarks. I appreciate the letter from Bob Collins and Dr. Smink. It's great to be with you and all the wonderful things that you've done for this program and others. And it's great to have these lovely folks here who've done so much in the area of disabled children or whatever. And I love the personal reference that you had about your family. I thought that was just beautiful. It's a real pleasure to be here. This 30th anniversary is really special. 30 years, Sandy, goes by in a hurry, doesn't it? Just whipped on by. But and I'm so pleased that my son Ted is here, who's a member of the board. It's good to have a family connection still with the work of the center. You know, as governor, I was so fortunate to participate here in the ribbon cutting, as we've referred to, and my beloved wife Tucky was here, and she was very active, and she was a chair of the council that really looked after a lot of the work here. But she was very much into this idea of preventing dropouts and how important that was to education. Then you subsequently honored the two of us by establishing the Governor Ms. Richard Riley Award for Excellence in Dropout Prevention, and of course we're very proud of that. I don't want us to forget that Esther Ferguson, though, was a person who was really involved with several other people to get this idea kind of underway. And we need to think back about people who really were involved 30 years ago in helping to get things moving. And I appreciate her and the people who were there then, many of whom are long since gone. Now, we all shared the primary view that education is a major key to a vibrant economy and successful democracy, and that's what we needed to look forward to in South Carolina. And the way to impact that, obviously, was to improve education for all children. It was essential that the material that we collected in our clearinghouse that be disseminated throughout the country, because the things that we would learn here, then we could make them available for those elsewhere. The National Dropout Prevention Center and Network was born at that time, though, with those careful thought. The renowned cultural anthropologist said, and I've heard this quote a lot of times, but it's important to think about it, just a handful of people really got this idea going. Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a group of thoughtful and committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." So here we have a couple of thoughtful people that start pulling thoughtful people together and growth, and then you look what all has happened. And I see my friend Dr. Hamby here, who I grew up with in Simpsonville and have watched his education career. Over the years, the center, though, has grown from collecting and categorizing information, creating publications with valuable information on dropout issues, providing technical assistance for program operations, hosting regional, national conferences to bring together practitioners for the sharing of important knowledge and ideas. You've created a model program database from which research and experience that you have developed recommendations for the 15 effective strategies for dropout prevention that is highly utilized by education institutions and others across the country. Dean, I know that makes you happy to see that moving around the country. And Dr. Addis had a wonderful editorial in the Greenville News this week, which I enjoyed reading and preserving, Sandy. Okay, and it talked about the 15 strategies and what a smart way that is to go about improving the issue of dropout prevention. The center's performance assessment and review program has helped individual schools, districts, statewide initiatives accomplish their school improvement goals. So I'm very impressed with the center's professional learning opportunities, your new dropout prevention specialist certification program for education and at-risk youth workers, something we all need to be paying more and more attention to. We have very participant knowledge of expertise in these at-risk youth issues. I'm real proud the center was chosen by the U.S. Department of Education, a place where I once was, to be the home of the National Dropout Prevention Center for Students with Disabilities that we just talked about earlier. The center's outstanding work, though, has been expanded, modernized, and personalized over these 30 years, and that has really paid out for all of us. But as was pointed out by Sandy, we still have a lot of work to do. The Census Bureau tells us that in 2012, 7% of all 16 to 24-year-olds in the United States were not enrolled in school and had not earned a high school diploma or an equivalency credential. The rates were considerably higher for Black, Hispanic, American Indian, Alaska Native males. The cost of dropouts then is staggering. The Alliance for Excellent Education, whose advisory council I now serve on, computes that dropouts really earn an average of some $8,000 per year, dropout less than high school graduates. Further, dropouts are more likely to be involved in the criminal justice system, rely on public services, have poor health and shorter lives, and less likely to vote and participate in our democracy. One thing that we are looking at more and more, and I'm involved in Furman, of course, and Furman has a new Advantage program, which I think has been very good, talking about getting young people engaged in whatever. High school students too, middle school students, get them engaged in the community, engaged in their learning. It's amazing how that works. If you can get young people to connect up, to get engaged. The Alliance further estimates that a 90% graduation rate among African American students in 2013 would have equaled 200,000 additional graduates, raising that to 90%, up from, what, 83% now. Those graduates would have earned approximately $1.6 billion and contributed $1.2 billion to the nation's annual spending, just to get those rates up to 90% for African American students. They would have generated $200 million in federal tax revenue, as well as increased new jobs, as we all know, buying homes, buying automobiles, all of that tremendously increased. So it's very clear that we must continue to raise awareness of the importance of staying in school, as well as develop viable solutions for dropout prevention, and that's what this organization is all about. You know, it occurred to me when we first came here 30 years ago, this tent could have been our facility. And now look how we've grown a lot with the support of this great dean. It's clear that we've got to continue to raise awareness of the importance of staying in school. Some things you can measure, some things you can't. You can measure that. A kid who drops out, you can measure. We know that's bad. And staying in school, we know that's good. The shift in student demographics in recent years has produced additional challenges and made your work even more important. And we all know that, those of us that are in education. The National Center's research tells us that dropping out of school is due to multiple factors that you all deal with all the time: academic factors, family, environment, financial, just to name a few. It's clear then that the prevention must be community-wide, an effort for the whole community. Civic organizations, businesses, families, faith-based groups, schools, local governments, all have got to work together to make this work well and encourage students, especially the less fortunate, to stay in school to achieve a brighter future for themselves. So the National Center for Dropout Prevention and Network here at Clemson University continues to be one of the preeminent resources for education leaders and practitioners, policymakers, community and business leaders all over the country. I'm very proud of the center. I'm proud of its direct path and all of the leadership here. I'm proud of all of the hardworking folks that make the center the most access resource in the world for dropout prevention, for recovery, and for reentry resources. I wish all of you at least 30 more years of success, or a zero dropout rate, whichever comes first. Thank you all.
Governor, Mr. Secretary, your contribution to this organization is deeply appreciated. I can't be in the same 10-foot circle with Governor Secretary Riley without telling you this. When I was a young teacher, I was okay, but I wasn't on fire. And right after he became governor, Governor Riley went across the state holding a series of meetings. And I went to a meeting he had in Greenville about how to improve education. And I walked into that meeting, a mediocre teacher who had a job, and I walked out an excited educator who believed that we could reform education. Governor Riley, that was had to be a 45-minute presentation, but it got my attention, sir, and I appreciate it. And I know there were a lot of other people who experienced that same thing. So, Governor, thank you. Thank you, sir. As it's my pleasure, while I have the microphone, to call your attention to the fact that Provost Bob Jones has just joined us. Provost, Executive Vice President of Academic Affairs here at Clemson University. Provost Jones, I will share with you after we finish here the comments I made just before you walked up of how supportive Clemson has been of us. These facilities that we enjoy, the infrastructure, the support, the organizational benefit of affiliation with the College of Education is phenomenal. Provost Jones, thank you for being here, and thank you for that support that you facilitate. Another person who came before me who influenced me as a young educator was Dr. J. Smink. Dr. Smink was the original executive director after Dr. Hamby helped to lay the foundation as the acting director. Dr. Smink became the director of the National Dropout Prevention Center and Network for 20, how many years? 5, 6, 26 years. And during that time, I probably talked to him, came to visit him as a user of the resources of this center many times. And he has been a guiding force in this organization. It would not be here today if it weren't for Dr. J. Smink. Dr. Smink, please come forward and share with us your thoughts.
I thought 25 years was fun, and it was, but the next 15 to 20 minutes will be a little more challenging, because what Sandy asked me to do was to share some of the insights of the center. And so, Governor and Dean and Provost and Sandy and friends of the center, thank you for coming out this afternoon. And what I've opted to do was to put some notes together so I don't miss some of the highlights that I really would like to share with you. Because the last 25 years has been, or 30 years, has been extremely exciting to me. And I want to share some of those notes with you. As a matter of fact, there's 4 things I want to do this afternoon. One, why is this dropout issue so important to us? And Governor Riley did a good job of talking about that. The second one is, how did NDPC get started and why here at Clemson University? I think I want to answer that question for us. And then, what were the primary areas of focus during the first 30 years of the center? And a guess at what might be the next focus over the next 30 years. So that's what I'm going to try and share with you over the next several minutes. One, let me take the first one. Why is dropout prevention important? Well, as we lived here for 30 years, one of the things that we constantly did was to assure we're on the right track. And as researchers, we also want to know, well, when did this issue of dropout prevention become important? Well, the first time it hit the literature was in 1927. When it hit the literature, and it wasn't dropout prevention then, they were talking about school leavers. Interestingly enough, that was 1927. In 1997, we were asked to help the Texas State Education Agency critique a new mandatory management system that they were putting out to the LEAs, to the local school districts. Interestingly enough, there was 63 different reasons why kids left school in Texas in 1997. We advised them that was way, way too many, and I think they took it down to about 20-some. But it's kind of interesting that gap of years. Between those years, let me share just historically a few things for you. As a young man, I took a job in the Pennsylvania Department of Education as a researcher, and one of the first things I did as an assignment was to take a look at some of their publications on dropout prevention. So that Pennsylvania Department of Education in 1963-64 put out their first publications on dropout prevention. Interesting. If you look back on history, America had its first shock at dropout prevention, although the word wasn't used, in 1983 when a special report called The Nation at Risk was released. And that particular report called attention to all of us as to the problems we had with American schools. And many of you remember that report, some of you obviously may not, but it's worthwhile taking a look at. The other thing that was happening in the 1980s was a lot of staring going on in the schools and in the non-school environment as to this issue of dropout prevention. And we talk about the network and the center, and in the network and the center, In addition to that, there was another activity going on. There was a National Dropout Prevention Board in New York City that was founded, and the governor referenced Esther Ferguson. Esther Ferguson is credited with founding that board along with her husband, Jim Ferguson, who was the CEO of General Foods. And they put together this board in New York City to take a look at the issue specifically in the city of New York. And so it had a 50-member board that was advising Esther and Jim as to what to do with this issue. And over a year or so, that board eventually advised the leaders of the National Dropout Prevention Board to move this movement from the city to the nation. And they suggested that it should be in a university. And so all of a sudden, those people that sat on the board and other interesting folks, including President Max Lennon, who was here at the time and also on that board, said, you know what, I think that center ought to be at Clemson University. And also the director of the Strom Thurmond Institute said, yep, and I'll help bring it here. And so there was a lot of interest in moving this notion that also started in New York City, dropout prevention, to move it to Clemson University. The other thing that happened about that same time was that the National Dropout Prevention Network, another entity, was cooking and brewing in our nation. All of the things that led up to that. And I was a part of that. I happened to be at Ohio State University at the time, and there was a gentleman at the California Department of Education who was Mr. Dropout Prevention. And there was a young lady at the University of Miami, Nancy Peck, who headed up a Center for Dropout Prevention in the state of Florida. And we began to talk about there ought to be a national organization that networks and has memberships. And so you can see this board going on over here. You can see this network going over here. And people said, let's move this board, rename it the center, and put it at Clemson University. And so the dean at that time, Dean Gordon Gray at the College of Ed, took Dick Hamby out of a professorship and said, Dick, I want you to write a proposal. You put this center together. You put this design together. And I remember Dick saying to me, I had no idea what to do. But Dean Gray knew I was a good writer. And so Dick Hamby, Dick, you can verify this. You gave me a call at Ohio State University where I was working in a research center. You gave Ray Eberhard in California a call, who was Mr. Dropout Prevention in California. You gave Nancy Peck at Miami a call. And the three of us, along with you, began to shape the text that shaped this center. Obviously, some of the things that I witnessed and was a part of at Ohio State were converted into what was happening here. But it was those three things that were happening simultaneously that helped bring a perfect storm of interest, in a positive sense, to put the center here at Clemson University. And so that's how we got here, with that kind of a background. And you can check with me later for some of the war stories behind that, or with Dick, but there were war stories there also. And so that's how the issue churned a lot of interest and why we got started here at Clemson University. The other thing that the Board of Advisors that advised me as I worked with them in New York City, some of the biggest names in the world that were working with General Foods, advised me to generate a franchisable product, something that would be branded by the center, and something that we could carry out across the nation. I wasn't sure what that was, but that thought stayed with me for a long time. And literally, as we talk today, and as you heard today, that turned into be really what we now call the 15 most effective strategies. But we need to give credit back to Horace Fleming and Max Lennon and Esther Ferguson for putting together that board in New York City and then moving it here. The other thing that I do remember during that early times was we had the need for money. And yes, Governor Riley was very instrumental in helping us get some funds from the state of South Carolina as well as other places. But there was another person that helped us significantly in early money, and that was Esther's husband, Jim, who was the CEO of General Foods. And we had an event in New York City that was hosted by not only Esther and Jim, but the prominent person at that particular fundraising event was Bill Cosby. And that night in the Waldorf Astoria, we raised $450,000 at the normal $10,000 a dinner plate or a dinner to support some of the activities that we had up front. An interesting thought that I wanted to share with you that's not necessarily always public, but it's how we got here and the people who we need to say thanks to. The other question that I told you I was going to share about is what were the primary areas of focus that the center took in its early years? One of the things that we learned way up front, still true today, is that there is no silver bullet to dropout prevention. And there's no single solution. It's a multitude of programs and activities that need to go on. But one of the things that we had to fight through, and I literally say this, is as we would get inquiries, people always wanted to give us money, share money with us, but they wanted us to fix something. Dropout prevention means, oh, there's something wrong with our schools. Let's fix them, or let's fix the kids, or let's fix the teachers. And so there was a lot of emphasis on the fix mentality, which we kind of went along with it when it was to our advantage to secure funds. But by and large, we tried to avoid the fix-it mentality. But the other thing that was equally disturbing is that most of those fixes came with funds that were dedicated for either 3 years or 5 years at most. And there's no way in the world that any project can have an immediate or a lasting effect in 3 to 5 years. Dropout prevention is a lifelong issue that we need to address, not just 3 and 5 years. But I understand the politics of it, or the organizations that were providing the funds. The other things in the 80s and 90s that we wrestled with, that I think we overcome, was the notion that certain organizations wanted to push their particular emphasis. For example, certain policymakers, such as the New York Governor Cuomo, was really, really high on mentoring and almost forced all local schools to have a mentoring program. Now, there's nothing wrong with mentoring. That's one of our 15 strategies. But mentoring has to be supported by many other activities. And so we had to comfortably and professionally get around some of those activities. Some of the other campaigns that we were a part of and need to put our professional guidance on was pregnancy prevention campaigns. Campaigns were in almost every state, led by either policymakers in their House or Senate. But the other one I remember specifically that is still active today is the removal of the driver's license if a kid drops out of school. Oh my goodness. When West Virginia started that 89 or 90, they were the first school that started it. And what a popularity contest. Within weeks, I was getting phone calls saying, you know, do you have that legislation? Can we copy it? What's the impact of it? Well, you know, after 2 years of taking a look at that issue, it sounded good. But what was happening was the kids would say, yeah, you know, I'll go back to school because I don't want to lose my driver's license. But what happened was after putting the kid back in the same school with the same teachers in the same class, they said, hey, already done that, flunked that, I'm out of here, catch me if you can. And so today there's well over a half of the states that have some kind of legislation. And for almost the last 10 or 15 years, I was active. Whenever a new legislator was elected at the state level, I'd get that phone call. I've got the cure. Can you help me? They just didn't learn. But there are some positive things on that. But one of the other things right, we began to see, and I think we were instrumental, is that it's just not a local school. It's just not a community. You have to work together to do that. And so one of the things we tried to promote and push was the notion of what we called integrative or collaborative togethers. And we began to see a lot of activities where organizations, whether they be at the state level or local level or community level, would be working together. And so that was also convincing us that it's part of what we were calling the 15 effective strategies. If you look at those strategies, those of you who are educators, you'll see in there something that we called the systemic approach. And it's based on all of those things that we were fighting that we knew wouldn't work. You know, the fix-it, the time-based. Systemic approach to dropout prevention means everything impacts it. Everything impacts it, and everybody needs to be working together. And so one of the things I remember about the 15 strategies that we have today, we first started it in 1990. We put out our first publication of the 12 effective strategies. And Dick Hamby and Marty Duckenfield and myself did some workshops in Kentucky and Tennessee and elsewhere where we were beginning to look at what are the elements that are useful and effective in these projects and programs that are out there. And that's when we started with 12. We eventually grew that up to a solid base of 15, and that's where we are to now. One of the things, and so that's a little bit of our struggling on who we are and what we wanted to do. One of the things that I want to share with you, and this is a little academia, Dr. Jones and Dean Petersen, but in the research that guided us, I asked Sandy one day, because I knew the answer to this, Sandy, why do people come to the center? Why do they come here? Now, originally it used to be phones and letters. Now it's a lot of other ways are coming in. And I won't put you on the spot because, or do you want to give me the spot? Why people call us and want our interest and influence is they're searching for solutions. It's absolutely solutions. And so if you draw a triangle, if you will, with me, and right in the middle of that triangle, write the word solutions, that's what people want. They want the National Dropout Prevention Center to give them solutions. And so let's go back to our triangle. Right at the very top, when people call us in any way, shape, or form, they want solutions, but specifically on this point of the triangle, they want information. What kind of information do they want? Well, originally it was statistics, because when you were Secretary of Education, Governor Riley, I think you still had the wall chart on dropout prevention. He's chuckling there because it was a very instrumental publication where the states were ranked from the highest graduation rate to the lowest one. And that's what people used to want, whether it's at the state level or whatever level. And so people want under information, they want statistics, or they want our help with funding, or they want publications. This center has collectively probably 100 plus publications that are professionally written, and they're information for people to use. Marty guided that for many, many years, including one of her pets. We have well over 45 publications just on what is service learning and how can it help youngsters stay in school. The next thing that people wanted from us in the way of information was programs. Give me a successful program. And so Marty and other staff members put together what we called the best database of programs in the nation, and it truly is. In there you'll see collectively well over 500 of the best proven programs that LEAs, local schools, and communities have put together over the years. And so that's what we give in the way of information. Many other things, and the governor mentioned some of those earlier. But one of the biggest things that we provided for them in the way of information is through our extension services, our national conferences, regional conferences, we have touched the lives of well over 100,000 people collectively over the years who have come to our regional conferences, our national conferences, and where we've provided them workshops and many times speaking with inspired speakers. Just a few that I must announce to you. Our very first inspiring speaker at one of our first national conferences in San Diego is a very close friend of yours, Governor Riley, Governor Clinton. It was when he was governor of Arkansas. He was our very first one. Other noted celebrities who told their wonderful stories and connections to dropout prevention was Dolly Parton, telling her story about she's one of 12 or 13 youngsters who should have been a dropout. She wasn't. She was the only one that graduated. She since has her own foundation. Also, Dr. Ben Carson, a name that you'll remember from the political surveys this year and candidates. He spoke to us in Detroit about how his mother forced him to stay in school, and obviously you know the history of Dr. Ben Carson. Jim Brown, the football player from Syracuse, and our most important bookends at our national conference in Pittsburgh was General Colin Powell. Started it off talking about the need for staying in school, and the closer at that conference was Mr. Rogers, talking about his importance of what it is to stay in school and have a wonderful neighborhood to support it. You just can't beat those. But our real clincher, if you were in the building, you probably saw Waylon Jennings in there. He made that poster, and we gave it to everybody when he spoke about at age 53, he went back and got a GED. And he spoke for well over an hour. He had an audience of 1,000 people right there in his hand, inspiring them to want to do something when they go back home. Because at age 53, he got a GED because his 11-year-old son was saying, "Dad, I don't want to go to school. Why do I have to go to school?" He said, "Son, I'm going back, and here's why." Wonderful story. That's the kind of information that people come to Sandy, your center. Coming up to this dot up here of information, if we don't have information to give them, the next thing we can do is process them. And so people will say, well, look, if you don't have that information, can you help me get it? And so we developed here several programs that's already been mentioned, which is the Diploma Planning Institute and the Specialist Institutes. And so they're the processing things, including PAR. We did a lot of PAR events, which are helping local schools look at their data, analyze it, see what's good, bad, and how it can be changed. And so if we have people coming for solutions for information, for processing, the other point is if we can't give them information, if we can't help them do this, can we refer them to our partners who may be a better partner to respond to the local needs coming to us? I think as professional people, we need to do that. We don't always have the answers for everything, but if we give them information, if we help them do something, we can refer them to other people. And this could be commercial, and we have a lot of partners where we're not necessarily promoting their product, but we're saying, hey, we think this particular group here can help you. And there are a lot of other organizations like that I won't take the time to mention, but they'll help. One of the last things that I want to mention under what really works, and during the interview earlier tonight, when John asked me what really works, one of the good things about the center is we know what works. We absolutely know what works, and it's not the same thing at each and every school district or each and every community. It varies depending on their needs. But here's several interesting successful stories that we've been a part of over the 30 years. Freshman academies, to those of you who are educators, we helped shape them under Sandy's leadership in the Anderson school districts and in Dorman, South Carolina. We helped a mentoring program in Kalamazoo, Michigan, where the baseball player, Jeter, put his money from Turn 2 Foundation into mentoring programs in Kalamazoo. We helped 65 alternative school districts in Texas and Dallas, Texas. We've helped Amory, Mississippi, put wiring in their total city and gave a computer to each student. And that student could take it home, and no excuses for not using it at home because the city was wired wirelessly for that. A lot of other programs too, some more successful at the state level. Some that I remember were really wonderful and worth mentioning is in Illinois. They put a lot of emphasis on truancy. And the other question that I got a lot of calls from, well, the dropout rate in most states is age 16. I said, well, let's raise it to 18, legislators say, and we'll give them 2 more years. Well, that's plus and minus, and so we have a lot of policy statements on that. But Illinois put an emphasis on truancy and on raising the age from 16 to 18 was very good. Some of the other states that are worthwhile mentioning is particularly in Mississippi, where we help them build a campaign to get on the bus and stay in school. And in the state of Wyoming, the state school officer there wanted every one of his board members, his school principals, the superintendents, and legislators to hear the 15 strategies. And so over a period of a year on separate conferences, they were all engulfed in what are these strategies. Hence, they have a lot of improvements in their graduation rates. We've been successful here for 30 years for a lot of reasons. The staff that's here and also a lot of people who have supported us. Interestingly enough, over the 30 years, there's a lot of other tries. The Dropout Prevention Center at the University of Florida lasted only 5 years. The one at Western Michigan University lasted only 5 years. There was one at the University of New Mexico, lasted 3 years. There was a National Academy in California that lasted 3 years. And so the point I'm making here is for us to sustain our activity for 30 years is we should be proud of. And as the governor said, we're going to be here for another 30 years. And so let me close with the last question that I said that I would take a shot at. And that is, what the heck is going to happen over the next 30 years? Well, as I pondered over this the last few nights, one of the things that I thought we should emphasize here is large school districts. Even though Sandy said we're going into New York City, and we did have other projects in New York City over the years, for the most part, they have more resources than we'll ever have here. And they, for the most part, can probably do it themselves. The rural and medium-sized school districts in America probably should be one of our focus areas. That'd be my guess. The other thing is the services that we provide should begin to be a little more targeted. Some areas that we haven't focused on yet that might be our partners, because one of the things that I personally believe in the literature is strong on is schools cannot do dropout prevention alone. They have to do it along with the community and all of the parts that are in that community, such as school board members. School board members sometimes aren't even aware of the issue. Legislators and community civic leaders, e.g. mayors. Mayors are pretty influential and probably ought to be targeted. We have a wonderful monograph on that. Faith-based leaders, some legal professionals. I'm talking about attorneys, hospitals and healthcare centers, a lot of demonstrations out there on what does work with that group, corporate CEO and leaders, and last but not least is the Chamber of Commerce. Dropout prevention is really economic development. I've made that particular phrase, tied it together many, many times. It's not just about getting a youngster to graduate. It's giving him or her the skills that they need to participate, not only as a family member, but also as an employee or a contributing person in the community. And so Chamber of Commerce is one way to push that particular thing. One or two of the other last notions that I really like the packages that Sandy has developed in the last 2 years of helping students or helping school districts be able to fend for themselves. The center can't go to 15,000 school districts across the nation, but we can help those who want to help themselves, and I think that's the new approach that we're beginning to take, and I really like that. And so, despite my closing notion here is, despite all of the efforts that we've made in 30 years for the center and network combination, dropouts still remain an issue and will remain an issue, because dropouts, yeah, they drop out in 8th, 9th, or 10th grade or later, but the dropout issue could start and does start as early as birth, sometimes even before birth. And we have some strategies on that, talking about how to do that. And so my advice, Sandy, to you and the remainder staff and those who support the center would be, stick to the franchisable 15 strategies, because if you look at them independently, they're strong, but collectively, it really is, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Yes, mentoring's important. Yes, service learning's important, but collectively, they're very powerful. And so I close with the notion that says, we're ready, let's get set, and let's go. Kind of like Nike says, let's just do it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Wow. You realize that the 15 effective strategies are adopted in some formal fashion, either as legislation or in state board of education rule by 32 states. Jay, thank you for that. That is a phenomenal impact. You folks see why I have Dr. Jay Smink on my speed dial and why he has a reserved parking place in the carport anytime he will come here and guide us. We lean on him a lot, and Jay, we appreciate you. Governor, we appreciate you. We appreciate what some of you folks that have gone before us have done, and your willingness to continue to support us and encourage us. We could not live without that. We have two more things. One thing we want to do is we want to bury a time capsule. And, you know, on the outside chance that a few of us might not be able to make it here after the 60th celebration, we have created a time capsule. And in your program, there's a list of the items that are in the time capsule. And I want to thank Jay and many of the folks that have worked here for helping us assemble these things. It's amazing when you start digging in cabinets and boxes what you find. And so we have assembled something that'll continue to tell the story. And we're going to bury that time capsule. We have a marker there, and we have a pile of dirt right now, but it'll go back in the hole at some point. But while you sit there and watch us and listen to the comments, I want to ask Governor Riley, Dr. Smink, Dean Petersen, to join me over there, and I'm going to ask each one of them, beginning with Governor Riley and followed by Dr. Smink and followed by Dean Petersen. They might even let me throw a little sand in there. I'd like for us to ceremonially cover that time capsule. It's already in the ground, and it's a real time capsule. And so we want to do that for you and for our live viewers. And then we want to ask you to if you haven't already done it, to go inside. We've got refreshments. If you all don't eat all of that, our staff's going to be really upset. And they'll have a lot of things to eat for the next 3 days. So we don't want that. We've got to go places and do things. So that needs to be consumed. We want you to enjoy that. We want you to see the beautiful facility in both of these buildings, if you hadn't already, that Clemson provides us. We could not dream for any better facilities and any better support than Clemson gives us. So the shuttles will run, last run will be at 5. I know many of you parked across the hill, and so we appreciate that. So Governor, Mr. Secretary, Dr. Smink, Dean Petersen, I'm going to take the microphone, and if you all will join me over here, please, I'd like for you to help me do this. The marker reads National Dropout Prevention Center and Network 30th Anniversary, October the 26th, which is actually 2 days away, 2016. Governor Riley, would you please take this shovel and put some sand on that time capsule?
Right on top.
Anywhere you want to put it, Governor. I'd say that's a good one. Thank you, Governor Riley. Dr. Smink. Dr. Smink will be here. He wants most of that stuff back. Thank you, Dr. Smink. Dean Petersen.
Thank you.
Without whom we could not exist.
My grandpa working. Here we go.
There you go. Okay. Thank you, Dean. And I'm going to do the same thing, which I never thought I would get to do. So thank you all.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you. Folks. Sir? Provost Jones, we need you to help cover this. I think he funded having the hole dug, if I remember correctly.
All right, there's a lot of work left to do here.
Yes, sir. We got the rest of it's yours, sir. Thank you. All right. He's taking it seriously. Thank you, folks. Make sure you go inside, see the facilities, network with each other. We appreciate you. Appreciate you being here. You've been gracious to us. Thank you for everything.